Elena's hands trembled as she stared at the ivory envelope on her kitchen table. The hospital letterhead seemed to mock her Mercy General, where her daughter Sophia lay waiting for a treatment they couldn't afford. 15 years she'd kept her silence. 15 years of scraping by, working double shifts, telling her daughter that someday they'd have enough. But someday had run out. The laboratory results confirmed what she'd always known. DNA doesn't lie. Through the thin apartment walls, she could hear her neighbor's television blaring the local news. Michael Harrington's latest acquisition has positioned Harrington Industries as the dominant force in pharmaceutical development, with a market capitalization now exceeding $7 billion. The sound of his name still made her stomach clench. Images flashed unbidden: Michael's smile in the dim light of his office, his promises, his ring on another woman's finger just 2 months after he'd told Elena their affair was over. She'd been 23, naive, his executive assistant. He'd been 35, married, and calculating. Elena had chosen dignity over scandal, disappearing without telling him about the pregnancy. She'd built a life of respectable poverty, her daughter's questions about her father deflected with half-truths about a man who'd died before knowing he would be a father. But now Sophia was dying. The experimental treatment cost $475,000. Elena picked up her phone and took a deep breath. Some secrets couldn't stay buried forever, not when her daughter's life hung in the balance. The oncology ward's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Sophia's sleeping face. At 15, she looked younger in sleep, the hollows beneath her cheekbones more pronounced against skin that hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. Elena gently brushed a strand of dark hair, Michael's hair, from her daughter's forehead, careful not to disturb the foreline. "Ms. Reyes." Elena looked up to find Dr. Patel in the doorway, clipboard in hand, her expression carefully neutral. That professional mask had become familiar over the past 18 months since they discovered the first tumor, through the surgeries, the radiation, the chemotherapy that had stripped Sophia of her beautiful thick hair and vibrant energy. "Could we speak outside?" the doctor asked. In the hallway, surrounded by the beeping of monitors and the squeak of nurses' shoes against linoleum, Dr. Patel didn't waste time on platitudes. "The standard protocols aren't working. The cancer is aggressive, and it's spreading faster than we anticipated." She paused, meeting Elena's eyes directly. "There's an experimental immunotherapy showing promising results in cases like Sophia's, but insurance won't cover it," Elena finished. She'd already made dozens of calls, filed appeals, spent hours on hold only to be told that experimental treatments weren't within policy guidelines. "We're trying to get her into the clinical trial, but spaces are limited, and there's a waiting list." "Privately?" Dr. Patel hesitated. "Privately, it would cost approximately $500,000. Elena felt the familiar wave of helpless rage. In America, survival had a price tag. How long does she have without it? The question scraped her throat raw. 6 months. Maybe 8. Elena nodded mechanically, muscle memory from delivering the endless bad news to herself first before she could bear to tell Sophia. 6 months. Not enough time to save the money, not with her salary as an administrative assistant at the community college. Not with the medical bills already piled on her kitchen table, red final notice stamps blooming across them like bloodstains. "I'll figure something out," she said, the lie bitter on her tongue. Back in Sophia's room, Elena settled into the vinyl chair that had become her second home. Her daughter stirred, eyes fluttering open. Michael's eyes, deep brown with flecks of gold. "Mom? What did Dr. Patel say?" Elena forced a smile. She said, "You're strong, baby. The strongest patient she's ever had." Sophia rolled her eyes, a flash of teenage attitude breaking through her exhaustion. "You're a terrible liar." "I'm working on some options," Elena said, reaching for her daughter's thin hand. "New treatments." "We can't afford new treatments." "Let me worry about that." Sophia's gaze sharpened. "Is this when you finally call him?" The question hung between them. Elena had never told Sophia her father's name, but her daughter was smart, too smart. She'd pieced together the fragments over the years, that he was wealthy, that he didn't know about her, that Elena had left without confronting him. "I don't know what you're talking about," Elena said softly. "Mom." Sophia's voice cracked. "I'm dying. I think I deserve to know who my father is before that happens." Elena felt something break inside her chest. For 15 years, she'd protected Michael Harrington from the consequences of their affair, protected her daughter from rejection, protected herself from humiliation. But what had that protection cost them all? "His name is Michael Harrington," she whispered, the name strange in her mouth after so many years of careful silence. "And yes, I'm going to call him." The Harrington Industries headquarters rose 68 stories above downtown, a gleaming spire of steel and glass that seemed to pierce the clouds. Elena stood on the opposite sidewalk, her reflection distorted in the windows of passing cars. A small woman in a department store blazer she'd ironed 3 times that morning, clutching a manila folder containing birth certificates, photographs, and the DNA results that link Sophia to one of the most powerful men in the country. 5 days of calls had gotten her nowhere. Michael Harrington's gatekeepers were efficient and impenetrable. Personal meetings were by appointment only. Appointments required a stated purpose, and "I need to speak to Mr. Harrington about his daughter" was apparently insufficient. She'd been transferred, placed on hold, promised callbacks that never came. Today she would simply walk in. The security desk loomed like a fortress in the marble lobby. Elena approached, heart hammering against her ribs. "I'm here to see Michael Harrington." The security guard barely glanced up. "Name?" "Elena Reyes." "And you have an appointment with Mr. Harrington?" "No, but..." "Then I can't help you, ma'am. Mr. Harrington only sees scheduled appointments." Elena leaned closer. "Please. Tell him it's about Westford Consulting, 2008. The year they'd met, the company where they'd worked together before he'd founded Harrington Industries." The guard's expression didn't change. "Ma'am, without an appointment. Is there a problem here, Thomas?" The voice came from behind her, deep and familiar despite the years. Elena turned slowly, and there he was, Michael Harrington, 15 years older but unmistakable. The dark hair now threaded with silver at the temples, lines etched around his eyes and mouth, but still handsome in a way that made her chest ache with remembered longing and fresh anger. He didn't recognize her at first. His expression was merely polite, the practiced smile of a man who navigated endless social interactions. Michael. His name felt foreign on her tongue after so many years of silence. The smile faltered. His eyes narrowed, then widened with shock. "Elena." Disbelief colored his voice. "We need to talk." He recovered quickly, the corporate mask sliding back into place. "Of course. Thomas, Ms. Reyes is an old acquaintance. We'll be in conference room 3. To Elena, with professional courtesy that revealed nothing, "This way, please." The elevator ascended in silence. Elena stared at her reflection in the polished doors, acutely aware of Michael standing a careful distance away, his expensive cologne bringing back memories she'd spent years trying to forget. Stolen moments in his office after hours. Whispered promises. The shock and humiliation when she'd discovered his wife was pregnant with their second child, the same week Elena had realized she was carrying his baby. The conference room was minimalist and elegant, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Michael gestured toward a chair but remained standing himself, hands in the pockets of his bespoke suit. "You look well," he said finally. Elena didn't bother with pleasantries. "I have a daughter. Her name is Sophia. She's 15 years old." If she'd expected shock or denial, she was disappointed. Michael's expression barely changed, just a slight tightening around his eyes. "I see." His voice was carefully neutral. "She's sick. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. She needs an experimental treatment that costs nearly $500,000, and insurance won't cover it." Elena placed the folder on the glass table between them. "She's your daughter, Michael." He made no move to touch the folder. "What makes you think?" "DNA doesn't lie." Elena pushed the results toward him. "I never asked you for anything. Not when I found out I was pregnant, not when she was born, not during 15 years of raising her alone. But she's dying, and you're her only hope." Michael finally reached for the folder, his movements deliberate. As he studied the results, Elena watched his face, searching for some glimpse of the man she'd once believed she loved. His expression remained impassive, unreadable. "Why now?" he asked finally. "Why not when she was born?" The question ignited something in Elena's chest. "You were married. Your wife was pregnant. What was I supposed to do? Destroy your family? Become the stereotype of the mistress demanding recognition? I had my pride." "Pride?" Michael's laugh was soft and bitter. "And now? Now I'd trade every ounce of pride I have to save my daughter's life." The silence stretched between them, taut as a wire. Michael turned away from her, staring out at the city sprawled beneath them, his city, in many ways, shaped by his company's influence and wealth. Wealth that could save Sophia with the equivalent of pocket change to a man like him. $500,000, he said finally, his voice distant. "For the treatment. $475,000. Plus ongoing care." He nodded once, still facing the window. "I'll have my assistant transfer the funds today. Just provide the hospital information." A wave of relief so powerful it was almost physical washed over Elena. She hadn't expected it to be this easy. She'd prepared for denials, for demands for additional proof, for legal threats. "Thank you," she whispered. Michael turned back to her, his expression unreadable. "I want to meet her." The relief curdled into apprehension. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Not yet. She's very fragile right now, and—" "I'm not asking, Elena." His voice was soft but firm. "I'm paying for a treatment that will hopefully save her life. I want to meet my daughter." Elena's hands clenched in her lap. "She doesn't know I'm here. She knows your name, but not that I've contacted you." Then it's time she found out. Michael's gaze was steady. "I've missed 15 years of her life. I won't miss any more. You can't just walk into her hospital room and announce yourself as her long-lost father. It would traumatize her. Then we'll do it however you think best. But it will happen." Elena studied him, searching for the man she'd known or thought she'd known all those years ago. The junior executive with the easy smile and ambitious plans. This Michael Harrington was harder, the planes of his face sharpened by time and power. "There's something else you need to understand," she said slowly. "If you come into her life now, you can't leave again when it becomes inconvenient. She's not a corporate merger you can abandon if the terms aren't favorable. She's a child, your child, who's fighting for her life." A flash of anger crossed his face. "You don't get to lecture me about abandonment when you kept her existence from me for 15 years. I did what I thought was best for everyone involved." "Did you?" Michael's voice was dangerously quiet. "Or did you do what was easiest for you?" Elena felt the old shame rise up, choking her. Had it been easier to disappear than to face the humiliation of being the pregnant mistress? Had she used his marriage as an excuse to protect her own pride? "I did what I thought was right," she repeated, more firmly this time. "But we're not here to rehash the past. We're here because Sophia needs that treatment, and she deserves to know where she comes from." Michael was silent for a long moment. Then he pressed the intercom button on the conference table. "Janet, clear my schedule for the rest of the day. And contact my lawyer, I need him to meet me at Mercy General Hospital in an hour." To Elena, "I assume that's where she's being treated?" Elena nodded, suddenly dizzy with the speed at which everything was changing. "Why do you need a lawyer?" she asked. "To draft an acknowledgement of paternity. To add her to my insurance, which will cover experimental treatments. To legally recognize what that DNA test already proves, that Sophia is my daughter." He reached for his phone, fingers flying across the screen. "I'm transferring the money now as a guarantee of goodwill, but with my insurance, you won't need it." Elena watched him, this stranger who was the father of her child, as he efficiently dismantled 15 years of careful separation in the span of minutes. What would this mean for Sophia? For their quiet, struggling life? "There's one more thing you should know," she said quietly. "Your father knows about Sophia." Michael's hand stilled on his phone. "What?" "Victor came to see me, about a month after I left. He offered me money to disappear, to never contact you or tell you about the baby." His face had gone very still. "And did you take it?" "No. But I did disappear. I thought it was better that way." Michael's expression hardened into something dangerous. "My father knew I had a child and said nothing. For 15 years. Yes. And now my daughter is fighting for her life." He picked up his jacket from the back of a chair, his movements controlled but radiating fury. "Let's go. There are a lot of conversations that need to happen today." As they walked toward the elevator, Elena realized that in trying to protect everyone, she might have hurt them all instead. The weight of her choices made when she was young and frightened and proud pressed down on her shoulders. What right did she have to deny Sophia a father who might have wanted her? What right did she have to deny Michael a daughter he never knew existed? And what would happen now that those 15 years of silence had been broken? The hospital corridor stretched endlessly before them, Michael's determined stride eating up the distance while Elena struggled to keep pace. His presence drew glances from hospital staff, something in the way he moved, the invisible mantle of power and wealth that he wore as naturally as his tailored suit. "Wait," Elena said, reaching for his arm as they approached Sophia's room. "Please." Michael stopped, turning to her with barely restrained impatience. "I need to tell her first," Elena said. "Alone. Please give me that much." Something flickered in his eyes, perhaps recognition of the enormity of what they were about to do. After a moment, he nodded once. 5 minutes. Elena slipped into Sophia's room, her heart hammering. Her daughter was sitting up in bed, scrolling through her phone with the bored resignation of a teenager who had spent too many months confined to hospital rooms. Despite the illness that had ravaged her body, Sophia's beauty shone through the high cheekbones, the intelligent eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw. So much like Michael. "Hey, Mom." Sophia looked up, then frowned. "What's wrong? You look weird." Elena perched on the edge of the bed, taking her daughter's thin hand. "I have something to tell you. Something big." Sophia's eyes widened slightly. "You found Dad, didn't you?" The directness of the question, so typical of her daughter, momentarily robbed Elena of speech. She nodded. "I knew it." Sophia's voice was quiet. "When you disappeared this morning without saying where you were going." Did he? "He wants to meet you," Elena said gently. "He's here, at the hospital. And he's arranging for your treatment." Sophia stared at her, emotions flickering across her face too quickly to read: hope, fear, anger, longing. Just like that? After 15 years of nothing, he snaps his fingers and pays some bills and gets to be my dad. "It's not that simple," Elena said. "He didn't know about you. I never told him I was pregnant. I never gave him the chance to be your father." The betrayal in Sophia's eyes cut deeper than any anger. "You told me he was dead." "I told you he wasn't in our lives," Elena corrected softly. "You assumed the rest, and I let you believe it because it was easier than the truth." "Which is what?" "That you kept me from him. That you lied to me my entire life." Sophia's voice cracked, 15 years of wondering crystallizing into accusation. "That I was young and scared and proud," Elena whispered. "That I made choices I thought were right at the time, choices I've questioned every day since." Sophia turned away, her profile sharp against the hospital pillow. "What's his name?" "His real name. Michael Harrington." Sophia's head whipped back, eyes wide with disbelief. "The Michael Harrington? The billionaire? Are you serious?" Before Elena could respond, a knock came at the door. Without waiting for an answer, Michael stepped inside, filling the small room with his presence. His eyes went immediately to Sophia, his expression softening in a way Elena hadn't seen since before their affair ended. "Hello, Sophia," he said, his voice gentler than Elena had heard it in the conference room. Sophia stared at him, speechless for perhaps the first time in her life. The resemblance between them was unmistakable now that they were in the same room: the shape of their eyes, the determined set of their mouths, the way they both held themselves with a certain innate dignity. "You look like my mother," Michael said quietly. It was so unexpected, this acknowledgement, that Sophia resembled Elena rather than himself, that Elena felt tears spring to her eyes. "Everyone always says I look like her," Sophia replied, finding her voice at last. "But I have your eyes." Michael moved closer, his gaze never leaving Sophia's face. "May I?" He gestured to the chair beside her bed. After a moment's hesitation, Sophia nodded. As Michael settled into the chair, Elena watched the tentative beginning of a connection between father and daughter, strangers bound by blood and circumstance, by her choices and Victor Harrington's interference, by 15 years of absence and the desperate hope for more years to come. "I've arranged for you to start the immunotherapy treatment tomorrow," Michael said. "The hospital administrator is expediting the paperwork as we speak. Sophia's expression was guarded. Just like that? You walk in and solve everything with money. Michael didn't flinch from her challenge. Not everything. But the treatment? Yes. That I can solve. Why now? Because I'm dying and it makes for a good story? The billionaire saves his secret daughter. Sophia, Elena started, but Michael raised a hand. It's a fair question, he said. The answer is simple. I only learned of your existence 2 hours ago. Your mother kept that knowledge from both of us. Sophia's gaze flickered to Elena, hurt and confusion evident. Why? Before Elena could formulate a response that wouldn't sound like an excuse, Michael spoke again. Because relationships are complicated. Because adults make mistakes. Because sometimes the easiest path seems like the right one at the time. He leaned forward, his eyes so like Sophia's intent. But none of that matters now. What matters is that you get well, and that we have a chance to know each other. Sophia studied him with the directness that was so characteristic of her. And if I don't want to know you, then that's your choice, and I'll respect it. Michael's voice was steady. But I hope you'll give me a chance to be in your life, in whatever way you're comfortable with. The room fell silent. Elena held her breath, watching their daughter consider the man who had been a stranger until this moment. Finally, Sophia spoke. I have questions. A lot of them. Michael nodded. I expect you do. I have some myself. And I'm still mad at both of you. That's fair, Michael agreed. Anger is a reasonable response to finding out your life isn't what you thought it was. A ghost of a smile touched Sophia's lips. You sound like my therapist. I've had some therapy myself, Michael admitted. It comes with the territory of being a Harrington. Something in his tone made Sophia look at him more closely. There's more, isn't there? More than just Mom not telling you about me. Michael glanced at Elena, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded slightly. Yes, he said, turning back to Sophia. There's more. But first, let's focus on getting you started on this treatment. The rest we'll keep until you're feeling stronger. In that moment, watching Michael with their daughter, Elena saw glimpses of the man she'd fallen in love with all those years ago before ambition and circumstance had hardened him. And for the first time, she allowed herself to hope that perhaps something good might come from the wreckage of their past mistakes. The transformation of Sophia's hospital room over the following week was nothing short of miraculous. Gone were the institutional beige walls, replaced by framed art personally selected by Michael's interior designer. The stiff visitor chairs had been swapped for comfortable recliners. A large smart TV now dominated one wall, while fresh flowers arrived daily, filling the room with color and fragrance. But the most remarkable change was in Sophia herself. Whether from the immunotherapy treatment that had begun immediately upon Michael's intervention, or from the surge of new energy that came with meeting her father, she seemed stronger, more vibrant. Her wit had returned, sharp and quick, especially when sparring with Michael, whose dry humor matched her own. Elena watched their growing connection with a complex mixture of emotions: joy that her daughter was finally knowing her father, guilt that she had deprived them both of years together, and a strange, unsettled feeling as Michael's world increasingly enveloped Sophia's. So when do I get to see the famous Harrington estate? Sophia asked one afternoon, as Michael helped her complete a college application, his insistence that she plan for the future a testament to his confidence in her recovery. When Dr. Patel clears you for day trips, Michael replied, his attention still on the application. Though I've been thinking we should convert the East Wing guest suite for you. It has its own entrance, plenty of privacy for when you're feeling better. Elena looked up sharply from the novel she'd been pretending to read. That's premature, don't you think? Michael met her gaze steadily. Not at all. Sophia will need a controlled environment during her recovery. The estate has everything: private medical staff, a pool for physical therapy, clean air away from the city. Mom, it sounds amazing, Sophia said, her eyes bright with an enthusiasm Elena hadn't seen in months. And it's only for recovery. It's not like I'm moving in permanently. Elena forced a smile. We'll see what the doctor says. Later, as Michael left for an unavoidable board meeting, Elena followed him into the hallway. You can't just remake our lives overnight, she said quietly. Sophia and I have our own home, our own life. Michael's expression was unreadable. A one-bedroom apartment with no elevator and questionable air quality. Hardly ideal for a recovering cancer patient. It's where she's grown up. It's familiar. Familiar isn't always better. Michael's voice softened slightly. Elena, I'm not trying to take her from you. The suite I mentioned has room for you as well. You could both stay, at least until she's stronger. The offer hung between them, layered with unspoken implications. Elena staying at the Harrington estate, entering Michael's world, blurring the careful boundaries she'd maintained for 15 years. I need to think about it, she said finally. Of course. Michael checked his watch. I should go. But there's something else you should know. My father is coming to the hospital tomorrow. He wants to meet Sophia. Elena felt a chill run through her. Victor knows. I told him. I thought it would be better coming from me than from the gossip columns, which will inevitably pick up the story soon. Michael's expression hardened. He confirmed what you told me, that he knew about her all along, that he tried to pay you off. And you still want him to meet her. I want Sophia to understand the complete picture of her heritage, both the good and the bad. Victor manipulated both of us, kept us apart for reasons of his own. She deserves to know that truth. Elena shook her head, remembering Victor Harrington's cold eyes, his contempt barely disguised as concern when he'd approached her 15 years ago. He'll hurt her. No, Michael said with quiet certainty. He won't. Because if he does, he'll answer to me. The next morning, the door to Sophia's hospital room opened to reveal Victor Harrington, imposing despite his 72 years. His silver hair was immaculately styled, his bespoke suit a subtle display of wealth and power. His eyes, so like Michael's, so like Sophia's, swept the room, taking in every detail before settling on his granddaughter. So, he said, his voice carrying the faint trace of a southern accent that decades in the north hadn't quite erased. You're Sophia. Sophia, propped up against her pillows, lifted her chin in a gesture so reminiscent of Michael that Elena's heart clenched. And you're the man who tried to bribe my mother to keep me a secret. A flicker of surprise crossed Victor's face, quickly masked. Your father has been talking, I see. We don't have secrets in this family anymore, Michael said quietly from the corner where he'd been reviewing emails. Not about this. Victor's mouth tightened briefly. Then, to everyone's surprise, he moved to Sophia's bedside and lowered himself into a chair with the careful movements of a man whose joints no longer obeyed without protest. You have your grandmother's spirit, he said, studying Sophia's face. She never minced words either. Is that supposed to be a compliment? An observation? Victor clasped his hands in his lap. You want to know why I tried to keep your mother away from my son? Why I offered her money to disappear? It crossed my mind. Victor nodded, as if her directness confirmed something for him. Michael was building what would become Harrington Industries. His first marriage had just fallen apart because Elizabeth couldn't handle the pressure, the hours, the ambition necessary to create something of that magnitude. His focus needed to be absolute. So I was an inconvenience, Sophia said flatly. You were a distraction he couldn't afford at that moment. Victor's gaze shifted to Elena. And you were too young, too inexperienced to be drawn into our world. I thought I was protecting all of you. By lying. Michael interjected sharply. By depriving me of my daughter for 15 years. By making the hard choice, as I've always done. Victor turned back to Sophia. Your father sees the world in black and white. Right and wrong. I see it in terms of necessary and unnecessary. Your existence was necessary. The Harrington bloodline continues through you. But the timing was unfortunate. Elena watched Sophia absorb this coldly pragmatic explanation, wondering if this glimpse into the Harrington worldview would frighten her daughter. Instead, Sophia leaned forward, her eyes intent. And now? Is the timing better now? Victor's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. Now, my dear granddaughter, the timing is perfect. You're old enough to understand what it means to be a Harrington, and Michael has built an empire that needs an heir. He glanced at his son. Though I admit, I would have preferred a less dramatic introduction to the family. In that moment, watching her daughter engage with her newly discovered grandfather, Elena understood that Sophia's life had already changed irrevocably. The Harrington dynasty had claimed her, for better or worse. And Elena herself was being pulled into their orbit, unable to resist the gravitational force of wealth, power, and the complex bonds of family that were reforming around them all. 3 weeks into Sophia's treatment, the preliminary results exceeded even Dr. Patel's cautious optimism. The aggressive cancer that had been winning the battle for months was finally in retreat, the experimental immunotherapy working exactly as hoped. Sophia would need more time, more treatment, but for the first time since the diagnosis, hope felt justified rather than desperate. Michael had been present for every major consultation, asking detailed questions, taking notes with the same intensity he brought to billion-dollar negotiations. He'd assembled a team of oncology specialists from across the country for second opinions, flown in a nutritionist who specialized in cancer recovery diets, and commissioned a comprehensive renovation of Elena's apartment to create a healthier environment for Sophia's eventual return home. Elena should have been grateful. Instead, she found herself increasingly uncomfortable with Michael's expanding role in their lives. He made decisions without consulting her, presented solutions as fait accompli, and seamlessly incorporated Sophia into the Harrington world as if the previous 15 years had been merely a temporary separation rather than a complete absence. We need to talk, she said one evening, catching Michael alone in the small waiting area while Sophia slept. He looked up from his laptop, his face showing the strain of balancing Harrington Industries with his newly discovered paternal responsibilities. What's wrong? You can't just take over our lives like this, Elena said, keeping her voice low. You're making decisions about Sophia's care, about our living situation, about everything without even asking me. Michael closed his laptop. I'm trying to help. No, you're trying to control. There's a difference. Elena sat across from him, forcing herself to meet his gaze directly. I've been Sophia's only parent for 15 years. I've made every decision, handled every crisis. I'm grateful for your help with the treatment, but I need you to respect my role in her life. Something flashed in Michael's eyes, anger, perhaps, or frustration. Respect? You kept her from me for 15 years, and you want to talk about respect? That's not fair. Isn't it? Michael leaned forward. You made a unilateral decision that affected all of our lives fundamentally. And now you're upset because I'm making decisions to give our daughter the best possible care. The tension between them crackled like static electricity. 15 years of unspoken resentments, of choices made and paths not taken, condensed into this moment. There's something you need to understand, Elena said finally. I didn't keep Sophia from you solely because of my pride, or because of your marriage, or even because of Victor's interference. Michael's expression sharpened. Then why? Elena took a deep breath. Because of what happened with Elizabeth. Michael went very still. What are you talking about? Your first wife. The miscarriage. How do you know about that? His voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper. Elizabeth told me. Elena met his incredulous stare steadily. She came to the office that day, the day I was going to tell you I was pregnant. She found me instead of you. She told me about losing the baby, about how it destroyed your marriage because you were too focused on the company to even attend the memorial service. Michael's face had gone pale. She told you that? She told me a lot of things. That you'd promised to change, to be more present, but that Harrington Industries would always come first. That if I was smart, I'd leave before you broke my heart too. Elena's voice caught. And then she showed me the invitation to your engagement party with Rebecca. 6 weeks after you told me you loved me. The silence between them was absolute. Michael stared at her, shock and something like dawning comprehension in his eyes. You never gave me a chance to explain, he said finally. What was there to explain? You were engaged to another woman while telling me you loved me. And according to your ex-wife, you were incapable of being the kind of father a child deserves. Michael shook his head slowly. Elizabeth lied to you. About all of it? What? There was no miscarriage, Elena. Elizabeth terminated the pregnancy without telling me. She didn't want children, she'd made that clear from the beginning of our marriage, but I'd hoped she'd change her mind. His voice was hollow with old pain. When I found out what she'd done, I filed for divorce. The memorial service she claimed I missed never happened. Elena stared at him, trying to reconcile this version with the story she'd believed for 15 years. But you were engaged to Rebecca. A business arrangement, initially. Victor orchestrated it, the merger of two family empires. Rebecca understood that. It wasn't until years later that we developed anything like real affection. Michael's eyes hardened. Elizabeth knew exactly what she was doing when she approached you. She wanted to hurt me, and using you was the perfect revenge. The weight of this revelation pressed down on Elena's chest. Had she built 15 years of separation on a foundation of lies? Had she denied Sophia a father based on a vengeful ex-wife's manipulation? I should have confronted you, she whispered. I should have asked for the truth. Yes, you should have. Michael's voice was flat. Instead, you disappeared. And I never knew I had a daughter until she was fighting for her life. The magnitude of her mistake, of all their mistakes, crystallized in that moment. Elizabeth's vindictive lies. Victor's cold calculation. Her own wounded pride and hasty judgment. Michael's failure to fight harder to find her after she'd left. And caught in the middle of it all, Sophia denied a father, a family, a heritage that was rightfully hers. "I'm sorry," Elena said, the words wholly inadequate for the years lost. Michael nodded once, acknowledgement rather than forgiveness. Then, unexpectedly, he reached across the space between them and took her hand. "We can't change the past," he said quietly. "But we can do better now. For Sophia's sake." As his fingers closed around hers warm and solid and real, Elena felt something shift between them. Not forgiveness, not yet. But perhaps the beginning of understanding. Then a nurse appeared in the doorway, her expression grave. "Ms. Reyes, Mr. Harrington, you need to come quickly. Sophia spiked a fever. Dr. Patel is on her way." The fragile moment of connection shattered as they both rushed to their daughter's side, the past temporarily forgotten in the urgent present of Sophia's fight for life. The setback was temporary, a complication of the immunotherapy that Dr. Patel assured them was not uncommon. But it served as a stark reminder of Sophia's fragility, of the precarious nature of her recovery. When she stabilized 3 days later, Michael made an announcement that surprised both Elena and Sophia. "I'm taking a leave of absence from Harrington Industries," he said, standing at the foot of Sophia's hospital bed. "Effective immediately." Sophia blinked at him, still pale from her recent fever. "Because of me?" "For you," Michael corrected gently. "There's a difference. The company will survive without me for a few months. The board has been notified, and my coup will step up in my absence." "Won't your stock crash or something?" Sophia asked, her interest in business already evident, another trait she'd inherited from her father. Michael smiled slightly. "There might be a dip. But Harrington Industries is built on stronger foundations than just my presence." His expression softened. "And some things are more important than stock prices." The words hung in the air between them, a direct contradiction to the Michael Harrington who, according to Elizabeth, would have prioritized the company above everything. Elena watched her daughter absorb this declaration, saw the carefully guarded hope in her eyes. "So what will you do instead?" Sophia asked. "Be here. Learn how to be a father." Michael glanced at Elena. "If that's acceptable." The question, his acknowledgement of her place as Sophia's primary parent, felt like an olive branch after their painful confrontation. Elena nodded slowly. "I think that would be good. For both of you." What none of them anticipated was the media storm that erupted following Michael's announcement. The business press speculated wildly about his reasons for stepping back: health concerns, a hostile takeover attempt, trouble with the SEC. But it was a tenacious lifestyle reporter who uncovered the truth. Harrington Air revealed, billionaire CEO's secret daughter fighting cancer. The headline appeared first in a tabloid, then spread to more reputable outlets. Sophia's existence became public knowledge virtually overnight. Photographers appeared outside the hospital. Reporters called Elena's colleagues at the community college, seeking information about her relationship with Michael. Most disturbing were the profiles of Rebecca Harrington, Michael's wife of 14 years, portrayed as the betrayed spouse confronting her husband's secret love child. "This is a nightmare," Elena said, scanning the latest article on her phone. "They're making it sound like Sophia was the product of a recent affair, not a relationship that ended before his marriage even began." Michael took the phone from her hand, his expression grim. "Rebecca will issue a statement clarifying the timeline. She knows the truth." "Has she called you?" Elena asked carefully. They hadn't discussed Michael's marriage since the revelation about Elizabeth's lies. Yes. Michael's voice was neutral. She's been very understanding. Understanding. The word seemed inadequate for a wife confronting the existence of her husband's previously unknown child. Elena tried to imagine how she would feel in Rebecca's position and couldn't quite grasp it. "Does she want to meet Sophia?" she asked. Michael hesitated. "Eventually. She thinks it's better to give everyone some time to adjust first." Before Elena could respond, the hospital room door opened and Victor Harrington entered, immaculate as always in a tailored suit despite the early hour. "The vultures are circling," he announced without preamble, placing a thick folder on Sophia's bedside table. "Our PR team has prepared statements for all of you. I suggest you review them before speaking to anyone." Sophia, who had been pretending to sleep while her parents discussed the media situation, opened one eye. "Do I get to say anything I want in mine?" Victor's stern expression softened marginally. "Within reason. Though I'd advise against your usual level of candor, young lady." "What fun is that?" Despite her weakened state, Sophia's spirit remained indomitable. She reached for the folder, flipping it open. "I'm grateful for the support of both my parents during this challenging time," she read aloud. "Seriously? This sounds like it was written by a robot." "It was written by professionals who understand how to navigate a media firestorm," Victor replied dryly. "Something you might appreciate when you're not being hounded for interviews every time you step outside." Elena watched this exchange with a mixture of amusement and concern. In just a few weeks, Sophia and Victor had developed a rapport that was simultaneously combative and affectionate. Her daughter thrived on challenging her grandfather's old-world formality, while Victor seemed to find her irreverence refreshing rather than offensive. It was yet another reminder of how quickly the Harringtons had absorbed Sophia into their world. How naturally she fit into this family that she hadn't known existed a month ago. Later that afternoon, as Sophia napped and Michael stepped out to take a call from the hospital board who were concerned about the media presence disrupting other patients, Elena found herself alone with Victor. "She's remarkable," Victor said, watching Sophia sleep. "Strong-willed. Intelligent. A true Harrington. She's also a Reyes," Elena couldn't help adding. "My family contributed something too." Victor turned to her, his keen eyes assessing. "Of course. Your resilience, clearly. Your moral compass, perhaps." He paused. "I owe you an apology, Elena." The statement was so unexpected that Elena could only stare at him. "I interfered in matters that weren't mine to control," Victor continued. "I made judgments based on what I thought was best for my son, for our family legacy, without considering the human cost." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because Sophia deserves a family united, not divided by old grievances." Victor glanced toward the sleeping girl. "And because I've come to realize that you raised an exceptional young woman under difficult circumstances. That deserves my respect, not my interference." Before Elena could respond to this surprising admission, the door opened again and a woman entered, tall, elegantly dressed, with the kind of refined beauty that comes from excellent genetics and careful maintenance. Elena recognized her instantly from photos: Rebecca Harrington, Michael's wife. "I apologize for not calling first," Rebecca said, her voice cultured and controlled. "But I thought this conversation might be better in person." Victor rose immediately. "I'll leave you to talk." As he exited, closing the door behind him, Elena felt suddenly, acutely vulnerable. This was the woman Michael had married, had built a life with for 14 years. The woman who, by all rights, should hate Elena for the complication she'd brought into her orderly world. "You must be Elena," Rebecca said, extending a manicured hand. "I'm Rebecca Harrington." Elena shook her hand awkwardly. "I know. I'm sorry about all of this, the media, the disruption to your life." Rebecca waved this away, taking the seat Victor had vacated. "The media I'm accustomed to. It comes with the Harrington name." She glanced at Sophia, her expression softening. "She looks like him, doesn't she? Around the eyes." "Yes." Elena watched Rebecca carefully, trying to discern her intentions. "Miss Harrington." "Rebecca, please." "Rebecca. I want you to know that I'm not looking to disrupt your marriage or make claims on Michael beyond what Sophia needs for her recovery." A small, sad smile touched Rebecca's lips. "That's very considerate, but somewhat beside the point." She smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her skirt. "Michael and I separated 6 months ago. The divorce papers were filed last week, well before he learned about Sophia." Elena stared at her, processing this revelation. "I didn't know. Few people do. We've kept it quiet for business reasons." Rebecca's gaze was direct. "I'm not here because I'm jealous or threatened, Elena. I'm here because this young lady is part of the family I married into, and I wanted to meet her. To offer my support, if it's welcome." The unexpected grace of this gesture left Elena momentarily speechless. She had prepared for anger, for territorial posturing, for cold civility at best. Not for this calm acceptance. "Why?" she finally managed. Rebecca's smile turned wistful. "Because despite what the tabloids might suggest, Michael and I have always been more partners than passionately in love. Our marriage was a merger first, a friendship second, and something like love only much later." She glanced again at Sophia. "And because I know what it's like to face the Harrington world unprepared. You might find you need an ally." In that moment, studying Rebecca's composed face, Elena understood that the corporate world of the Harringtons operated by different rules than the one she'd known. Alliances, strategy, positioning, these were as natural to them as breathing. The question was whether she and Sophia could navigate these unfamiliar waters without losing themselves in the process. The impromptu meeting with Rebecca marked a turning point. Over the following weeks, as Sophia continued to respond well to treatment, Elena found herself increasingly drawn into the complex web of Harrington family dynamics. Rebecca, true to her word, became an unexpected ally, offering insights into the machinations of Victor and the broader Harrington circle. Michael divided his time between Sophia's treatment and necessary, if limited, oversight of his company. And Victor, despite his apparent contrition, continued to maneuver behind the scenes in ways Elena didn't fully comprehend. "He's been meeting with the board," Rebecca informed Elena over coffee in the hospital cafeteria. "Positioning himself as the family patriarch, stepping in during Michael's absence." Elena frowned. "I thought he'd retired years ago." "Victor never truly retires from anything," Rebecca said, stirring her coffee absently. "He merely steps back when it suits him, then reinserts himself when an opportunity arises. And Sophia's existence is an opportunity." Rebecca's gaze was knowing. "Everything is an opportunity to Victor. Sophia represents the continuation of the Harrington line, which gives him leverage with the old guard board members who value such things." The calculation in this assessment made Elena deeply uncomfortable. She's a 15-year-old girl fighting cancer, not a chess piece. In Victor's world, she can be both. Rebecca's voice was gentle but firm. "That's what you need to understand about the Harringtons, Elena. Family is both deeply personal and inherently strategic." That evening, as Elena was helping Sophia with a college application essay, Michael's insistence on planning for the future now a shared priority. Victor appeared carrying an elegantly wrapped package. "A gift for my granddaughter," he announced, placing it on Sophia's lap. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Another one? You've already filled half my room with presents, grandfather. This one is special." Victor's expression was uncharacteristically earnest. "Open it." Sophia unwrapped the package to reveal an antique wooden box, its surface inlaid with mother of pearl in an intricate pattern. Inside, nestled on velvet, lay a heavy gold signet ring engraved with the Harrington family crest. "This belonged to my father, and his father before him," Victor explained. "Traditionally, it passes to the eldest Harrington son, but as you are Michael's only child, it rightfully belongs to you." Sophia lifted the ring carefully, studying the engraving. "It's beautiful," she admitted. "But why now?" Victor sat at the edge of the bed. "Because you are a Harrington, whether you bear the name yet or not. And because I want the world to know that you are acknowledged, accepted, and valued as my granddaughter." The formal declaration brought unexpected tears to Sophia's eyes. Despite her initial wariness of Victor, his acceptance clearly meant something profound to her, a connection to a heritage she'd never known she possessed. Elena watched this exchange with mixed emotions. Victor's gesture seemed genuinely affectionate, and yet she couldn't help remembering Rebecca's warning about his strategic thinking. What did it mean that he was publicly claiming Sophia as a Harrington now, before she was even out of the hospital? Later, after Victor had left and Sophia had fallen asleep, the signet ring placed carefully on her bedside table, Michael returned from a brief visit to Harrington headquarters. "My father gave her the ring," he said quietly, noticing it immediately. Elena nodded. "He made quite a ceremony of it?" Michael's expression was unreadable. "That ring has been in our family for 4 generations. I always assumed he'd give it to me when he thought I was ready to fully lead the family. And now he's given it to Sophia instead." "Yes." Michael seemed troubled. "It's significant, though I'm not entirely sure what message he's sending. Rebecca thinks he's making a public statement about Sophia's place in the family, establishing her as a legitimate Harrington." Michael glanced at her sharply. "You've been talking to Rebecca?" "She's been very helpful, actually." Elena hesitated, then asked the question that had been bothering her. "Why didn't you tell me about your separation? About the divorce?" Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture of fatigue he rarely allowed himself to display. "It didn't seem relevant to Sophia's situation. And it's complicated. I think I deserve to know the complications, given how intertwined our lives have become." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "You're right." He took the seat beside her, lowering his voice to avoid disturbing Sophia. "Rebecca and I married because it made sense for our families, for the business. We built a partnership that worked for both of us, but there was always something missing." "Love," Elena supplied softly. "Yes, though we both tried. When we couldn't have children." Michael paused. "That's when things began to shift. Rebecca wanted to pursue adoption. I was resistant, though I couldn't fully articulate why. And now I understand that I was carrying the weight of what happened with Elizabeth, the terminated pregnancy, the betrayal. And perhaps some unconscious awareness of what I'd lost with you and Sophia." He met her eyes directly. Rebecca deserves a chance at the family she wants. And I needed to face my past before I could move forward. The quiet intimacy of this confession hung between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. For a moment, Elena allowed herself to imagine what might have been if Elizabeth hadn't intercepted her that day, if she'd told Michael about the pregnancy, if they'd had a chance to build a life together. Then her phone chimed with a news alert, breaking the spell. She glanced at the screen and froze. Harrington heir officially recognized, billionaire's love child named in corporate filings. What is it? Michael asked, noticing her expression. Wordlessly, she handed him the phone. His face darkened as he read the headline and the accompanying article, which detailed a recent filing with the SEC in which Sophia was listed as a beneficiary of the Harrington Family Trust. I didn't do this, he said, his voice tied with anger. This had to be my father. But why would he? Control, Michael cut in. It's always about control with him. By naming Sophia in the trust documents now, he's forcing my hand. Making it impossible for us to keep her recovery private, to let her adjust to all of this at her own pace. Elena felt a chill. What do you mean, forcing your hand? Michael stood, his movements sharp with restrained fury. The trust has specific provisions. Once a beneficiary is named, they must be formally introduced to the company shareholders at the next annual meeting. It's an old-fashioned tradition. My grandfather insisted on a way of ensuring the family maintained personal connections with major investors. And when is the next meeting? 6 weeks from now. Michael's jaw was tight. He's trying to ensure Sophia's public debut as a Harrington happens on his timeline, not ours. And he's using my absence from the company to do it. Elena glanced at their sleeping daughter. Can't you stop it? Remove her name from the documents. Not without a legal battle that would generate even more publicity. Michael shook his head grimly. My father has outmaneuvered me. The question is why? The answer came the following morning, when Victor arrived accompanied by his personal attorney. He requested a private word with Michael, but Michael refused to leave Sophia's room. Whatever you have to say can be said in front of Elena and Sophia, he insisted. We're past keeping secrets in this family. Victor's smile was thin. As you wish. He nodded to his attorney, who produced a folder of documents. I've taken the liberty of preparing legal papers acknowledging Sophia as your heir and granting her all rights and privileges as a Harrington, including a significant ownership stake in the company. Michael took the papers, scanning them quickly. This gives her twice the shares I was planning to allocate. And it grants you conservatorship of those shares until she turns 21. She's a minor, Victor said smoothly. Someone must manage her interests until she comes of age. Her parents can manage her interests, Elena interjected. Michael and I are perfectly capable of looking after Sophia's welfare. Victor turned to her, his expression patronizing. With all due respect, Ms. Reyes, you have no experience in corporate governance or the management of significant assets. And Michael, while brilliant, has demonstrated a concerning tendency to allow personal matters to interfere with sound business judgment recently. By which you mean my decision to take time off to be with my daughter during her cancer treatment, Michael said coldly. By which I mean your failure to consider the broader implications of your actions on shareholder value, Victor corrected. The stock has dropped 15% since your leave of absence. Millions in market capitalization vanished overnight. Sophia, who had been listening intently to this exchange, sat up straighter in her hospital bed. So what exactly are you proposing, Grandfather. Victor smiled at her, a real smile, warm with genuine affection. I'm proposing to protect your inheritance, my dear. To ensure that when you're ready to take your place in the company, your position is secure. By controlling my shares yourself in the meantime, Sophia observed shrewdly. By managing them with the benefit of 60 years' experience in the business world, Victor countered. Elena watched this exchange with growing apprehension. Victor was playing a long game whose rules she didn't fully understand, using Sophia as both pawn and prize. And judging by the calculating gleam in her daughter's eye, Sophia found this corporate chess match intriguing rather than alarming. I'll need to consult with my own attorney, Michael said, placing the documents back in the folder. And Sophia is in no condition to make decisions of this magnitude while undergoing treatment. Victor's smile didn't waver. Of course. The papers will be waiting when you're ready. He rose to leave, then paused. Oh, and the board has called a special meeting for tomorrow. Your presence is requested, Michael. In person. After Victor departed, the room was silent for a long moment. Then Sophia spoke, her voice thoughtful. He's using me to force Dad back to work, isn't he? Michael and Elena exchanged surprised glances at their daughter's perception. Yes, Michael admitted. Though it's more complicated than that. He's using you to re-establish his own influence over the company while I've been distracted. Sophia fingered the signet ring Victor had given her. The ring was part of it too, wasn't it? A public symbol that I'm a real Harrington. Probably, Michael agreed. My father rarely does anything without multiple layers of intention. Sophia considered this, then looked up at them both with an expression that seemed far older than her 15 years. I want to learn about all of it, the company, the trust, what it means to be a Harrington. But I want to learn from both of you, not just Grandfather. Her gaze shifted to Elena. And I don't want to stop being a Reyes while I become a Harrington. The simple declaration crystallized everything Elena had been feeling, her fear that Sophia would be consumed by the Harrington world, that the daughter she'd raised alone would be transformed into someone unrecognizable by wealth and privilege and power. You won't, she promised, taking Sophia's hand. Whatever happens with the company, with Victor, with all of this, you'll always be yourself first. Michael moved to Sophia's other side, completing the circle. And we'll face it together. All three of us. But as they sat there, united in that moment of resolve, Elena wondered if any of them truly understood what they were up against, not just Victor's machinations, but the transformative power of the Harrington legacy itself. Michael's return to Harrington Industries for the special board meeting left Elena and Sophia alone for the first full day since his dramatic entrance into their lives. The hospital room felt strangely empty without his commanding presence, his laptop constantly open on the windowsill, his low voice taking calls in the corridor. Do you think Grandfather will win? Sophia asked, looking up from the finance textbook Michael had brought her, part of her self-directed crash course in understanding the business world she'd unexpectedly inherited. Elena considered the question carefully. Victor has experience and connections on his side. But your father is formidable in his own right. You're being diplomatic, Sophia observed with a small smile. You haven't actually answered the question. Before Elena could respond, there was a soft knock at the door. Rebecca entered, elegant as always in a tailored dress, carrying a sleek leather portfolio. Am I interrupting? She asked. Not at all, Elena assured her. We were just speculating about the board meeting. Rebecca's expression was grave as she took a seat. That's actually why I'm here. I thought you should know what's happening. She opened the portfolio and withdrew several documents. Victor is making a move to have Michael temporarily removed as CEO, citing personal distraction and dereliction of duty. Can he do that? Sophia asked, eyes wide. He needs a majority of the board, Rebecca explained. And based on my sources, he's very close to securing it. But that's absurd, Elena protested. Michael stepped back to be with his daughter during a life-threatening illness. How is that dereliction of duty? In the corporate world, particularly at this level, personal considerations are often viewed as weaknesses. Rebecca's tone was matter-of-fact. Victor is arguing that Michael's decision has cost shareholders billions in lost market value, which, technically speaking, is correct. Sophia's face had gone pale. This is my fault. If Dad loses his company because of me. No, Elena and Rebecca said simultaneously. Rebecca reached for Sophia's hand. This is Victor's doing, not yours. And I believe Michael anticipated it. He's been preparing his counter-strategy for days. What counter-strategy? Elena asked. Rebecca hesitated, glancing between them. I'm not entirely certain. But he asked me to deliver this. She withdrew a sealed envelope from her portfolio. He said to give it to you both if the board meeting lasted beyond noon. It was now nearly 3 o'clock. Elena accepted the envelope, a sense of foreboding settling over her as she broke the seal. Inside was a handwritten note in Michael's precise script. Elena and Sophia. If you're reading this, Victor has made his move as I predicted. By now the board meeting will have become contentious. What happens next may seem alarming, but trust that I have a plan. 15 years ago, I lost you both because of secrets and manipulations. I won't lose you again, even if it means risking everything else. Whatever you see or hear in the media, remember that my priority is and always will be our family. Michael. Elena looked up from the note, meeting Rebecca's knowing gaze. What is he planning to do? Before Rebecca could answer, Sophia's phone chimed with a news alert. She grabbed it, eyes widening as she read the screen. Breaking, Harrington CEO threatens to liquidate personal shares unless board backs down, she read aloud. Michael Harrington, facing a challenge from his father and certain board members, has threatened to sell his controlling interest in Harrington Industries if the board votes to remove him as CEO, potentially triggering a catastrophic devaluation of the company's stock. My God, Elena breathed. He's willing to destroy the company. Rebecca shook her head, a hint of admiration in her expression. He's calling Victor's bluff. The board would never risk a fire sale of Michael's shares. It would create market panic and potentially allow competitors to acquire significant portions of Harrington Industries. But would he actually do it? Sophia asked, staring at her phone in disbelief. Sell his shares? I don't know, Rebecca admitted. The Michael I was married to for 14 years would never have considered it. The company was everything to him. But since learning about you, Sophia, he's changed. The implications of this hung heavy in the air. Michael, who had built Harrington Industries from a modest family business into a global powerhouse, was willing to risk it all. For Sophia. For the chance to be her father without interference. 3 hours later, the hospital room door opened and Michael entered, his tie loosened, his expression weary but triumphant. I take it you've seen the news, he said, noting their anxious faces. Were you really going to sell your shares? Sophia asked immediately. Michael sat on the edge of her bed. his movements deliberate. I was prepared to do whatever necessary to ensure my right to be your father came before my obligations as CEO. But the company, your life's work, is just a company, Michael finished quietly. Important, yes. Valuable, certainly. But not irreplaceable. His gaze moved from Sophia to Elena. Some things, once lost, can never be recovered. I've learned that lesson the hard way. Elena felt a lump form in her throat at the raw honesty in his voice. What happened at the meeting? Victor overplayed his hand, Michael said, a hint of grim satisfaction in his tone. When I made it clear I would rather burn Harrington Industries to the ground than allow him to use it to control my relationship with my daughter, the board balked. They voted unanimously to reject his proposal for my temporary removal. And grandfather? Sophia asked softly. Michael's expression softened at her concern. He's been asked to step down from the board. His formal retirement will be announced next week. The finality of the statement left them all momentarily silent. Victor Harrington, the patriarch who had ruled the family and company with an iron will for decades, had finally been outmaneuvered by his own son, defending his right to know his daughter. He'll never forgive you, Rebecca said quietly. Michael nodded, acknowledging this truth. Probably not. But I'm no longer seeking his forgiveness or his approval. He turned to Sophia. I am sorry, though, that this conflict with my father may complicate your relationship with him. Sophia considered this, twisting the Harrington signet ring on her finger, the ring Victor had given her as part of his now failed strategy. He manipulated all of us. Used me to try to control you. That's not what grandfathers are supposed to do. No, Michael agreed. But despite his methods, I believe he genuinely cares for you. In his way. His way isn't good enough, Sophia said firmly. Then, with the resilience that had characterized her fight against cancer, she added, but maybe he can learn a better way. People can change, right? The simple question, asked with such hope, seemed to encompass all of them: Victor with his manipulations, Michael with his evolving priorities, Elena with her 15 years of protective isolation. Could they all change, become better versions of themselves through this crucible of revelation and reconciliation? Looking at Michael, Elena saw something she hadn't noticed before: a weight lifted from his shoulders. For years he had strived to earn Victor's approval, to build the company his father had always envisioned, to be the son Victor wanted. Today, he had finally broken free of that need. There's something else you should know, Michael said, returning to the matter at hand. As part of today's resolution, I've restructured the Harrington Family Trust. To remove me? Sophia asked, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. No. To ensure that your interests are protected, but managed jointly by myself and your mother until you come of age. Michael glanced at Elena. If that's acceptable to you. The gesture, his acknowledgement of her equal role in decisions affecting Sophia's future, touched Elena deeply. Yes. That's acceptable. There's more, Michael continued. I've also established a separate foundation in your name, Sophia. Focused on providing access to experimental cancer